So pretty. Cute little babies. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, this is kind of an older story, but I took time off, during the last month of my pregnancy and then with the newborn stage. So, some of the stories I'll be covering now are past, but still I wanted to talk about them. And one in particular was how Lauren Southern claims Andrew Tate R-worded her. Now, what's interesting about this phenomenon that has occurred with Tate is how many women accuse him of strangulation. And another side of this that I think is quite revealing is how many people Lauren Southern has done things with. It's reported that she gave oral to Tommy Robinson, was very close with Paul Joseph Watson. Some have reported she did stuff with Tim Pool. It's also noted that she did have intercourse with the bisexual streamer Destiny, the one who used to have blue hair, the one who was in an open relationship before his woman left him. And now it's revealed that she has also done things with Andrew Tate. Now, what's interesting is that Lauren Southern, for a little while, flirted with being a white supremacist, right? She left it, but she flirted with it, and she hates Muslims. Yet, she was hanging out with and kissed and got drunk with Andrew Tate, who is half black and a Muslim, right? Now, Lauren Southern has clearly left trad values. There was a moment where she went into her kind of feminist mode and was saying how being a trad wife is not really feasible after she got her divorce. And Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, retweeted her and was like, correcting her and whatnot. So I followed Lauren Southern's work for a while, and I just find it fascinating that with what she used to preach and how she behaves, later on, just her spectrum of people who she's let have access to her body, and how so many of the right-wing e-girls in the Christian movement really have, skanky pasts. And it just reminded me of how thankful I am for Islam, because we are encouraged to not free mix with men, to not take intoxicants, to not be isolated with impermissible men. So all the things that Lauren Southern hates about Islam would have actually aided her in living a safer lifestyle. And what I find interesting as well is that she put in her book some of her confessions of degeneracy. Now, another string here is Milo really is somebody who is bad for women to be around. He really does lead people astray, and whoever gets around him seems to always have trouble follow, and he's a gossip merchant. And I just find it odd that whenever there's a scandal in the right wing, there's always a connection to Milo. And he is a gay Jew, and he converted to Catholicism, and he claims to not be gay anymore, but we all know he is. And he's just a very shady individual. And the fact that he also was friends with Ashley Sinclair, who was one of Elon's concubines, and now he's really trolling, well, he was, rather, because it's past tense, Lauren Southern for, hooking up with Tate. You're like, this guy is just really trouble. And so I think it would be great if Lauren Southern just really revisited Islamic values, because she has been free to choose her own choices, and she pretty much became a junkie skank, and now she's a single divorced mom. So clearly she's not really living with the best blueprint for life. And in her account of what happened, she says she was tired, and she really says how drunk she was. And I find it strange how women, she will say, I think it's a great idea to get shit-faced. It's a great idea to just get totally drunk and, flirtatious with men. It's just a bad combo. And clearly no one deserves for anything to happen to them, and we all want women to be safe. But a Western addiction to alcohol causes so many problems. And I love that Islam requires the believers to not have any intoxicants. And I know you can be sober and be an atheist, no doubt, but the fact that Christians will say Jesus drank wine and will make excuses to keep consuming alcohol, you're like, that's why, Christian cowboy with a whiskey bottle is such a problem, still to this day even. And so I think that Islam has such great values for women, because women are told to be sober and not free mix with men and not be isolated with men, and not to be total skanks hooking up with people who will further their career. And one thing in particular that I noted during that whole exchange, because I was doing quite a lot of research on it when it first broke, even though I'm covering it now at a later date, was how Tate, he said he would, release the texts of that Lauren sent between him and them, and showing that she's not being fully honest here. And a lot of people who hate Islam, I noticed, were blindly believing what Lauren said about being R-worded. And this gets into such difficult territory of believe all women to those who will do stuff and then they have so much shame because of their hedonism and degeneracy that they embellish a bit. And so you just really got to look at someone's character here and wonder, is this a brand thing? What is this? And Lauren Southern tends to go away for a while and then come back with some other scandal and some tell-all story. And I really hope that she can get her life together. But it's just fascinating how someone who spends times hating modesty, hating Islamic values, and embraces the secular liberal atheist degeneracy, and then those values lead her to getting in precarious, unstable situations. And she doesn't see the irony there. And another thing, the brothers should look at Tate and be like, why are you risking your career? Like, why are you doing this? And somebody has herpes in that mix. Somebody reported that Lauren Southern has herpes. She got it from Destiny, and since, she had relations with Tate, does Tate have herpes now? And then you look at Tate's rhetoric, like his interview with Bonnie Blue, and then you're like, you know, you're sitting here sleeping with e-girls too. You can't really complain about Western degeneracy then. Because if you have two women who you have kids with and they live in your compound, and then you're cheating on them with someone as like Lauren Southern, you know, this is pretty gross. It just, Lauren has been passed around and let everyone dip into the cookie jar. Why would you go to that? And it just kind of shows how, if she's pretty enough, Tate will tap it. And in the Bonnie Blue interview, he said he would sleep with Bonnie Blue for a certain amount of money. So you can see how there's a contradiction here with Tate's ethos, and he can't really complain about Western degeneracy when he's helping to increase Lauren Southern's body count, and how he kind of minimizes adultery, and he's not obeying any Islamic value which calls for the cessation of zina. Like, you cannot do zina, you cannot have relations outside of marriage. And he has not Islamically got married to his women, and he totally could, and he has enough money to have great Islamic, like 4 Islamic wives, and have more children. So you can see some contradictions going on here with how he lives. But I was really surprised that those two hooked up with each other. Now, Tate claims it was consensual. Lauren says it wasn't. But what I hope some women get from this is, you need to stop drinking, and you need to stop drinking to the point where you lose the ability to have, you know, cognitive abilities, and you gotta stop being drunk around horny men. And she admitted that she kissed him, and others claim she was in her underwear in his bed. You know, you gotta really talk to your daughters and tell them it's not a good idea to get drunk and get in your underwear and go in your bed with a horny man. You hope that he has the self-control to just roll over and go to sleep once you say no. But you shouldn't put yourself in that position to begin with. And I just look at her reckless lifestyle of drug use, trying to make it as a right-wing e-girl influencer, and you look at how her hypocrisy of, I hate Muslims, but then she goes and does stuff with a Muslim. You're like, okay, you know, this woman is all over the place. And I hope that she can just reconnect spiritually with the Most High, because clearly she's on just a dark path. I see her as going on a dark path. And I had, you know, when I first encountered her, I was like, she has a unique style. We'll see how she is. But then you see that part of her appeal was her thirst trapping as a white supremacist chick. You know, when you look at her history, when there was really a white consciousness coming up, she was single, she was easy, she was blonde haired, and she's white. Now, I saw a post that says she's Jewish, actually, and where she herself says she's part Jewish, and there are people who say that Jews are not white. So there's some conversations around there, but that's not as widely known. I just find it interesting that she, you know, has a whole history of not getting along with the manosphere, like with Rollo Tomasi, and she tries to get in connection with the Sargon of Akkad crowd and the Tommy Robinson crowd, and then she leaves them, and then she goes and she's hanging out with Andrew Tate, who is like a pornographer pimp, And you're just like, what's going on with this woman, right? Where's her mom and dad? I don't know how close she is with her family, but it's just quite strange. And I do think that she should be sued in some way for defamation and some of these crazy charges if Tate can prove in court that she texted him after and was lovey-dovey, begging him for money, because Tate said after they had relations, she was asking him to give her some money to invest in her media company that she wanted to launch. And if someone just R-worded you in a very violent way and strangled you over and over and over, which could nearly kill you, I'm not sure why you would have further contact with that individual and ask them for money. You know, you could argue Stockholm Syndrome, abused wife syndrome, all this stuff. But if you're traumatized by that, I don't see why you would, go back to that person. But then you have, like, the women of P. Diddy, who, like Casey, I think her name was, they keep going back, letting someone abuse them and then not leaving the relationship and then just staying and being a punching bag. But it just goes to show you that if you're a man with status, you need to really be careful what type of women you go with. Tate obviously has a very low bar for women, because if he sees Lauren as a drug user, that she's been passed around the red pill sphere, why would he want to take a dip in that? Why would he go so low? And for her, it's like, clearly she was using her body and sexual favors to get status rather than her intellect. Just the fact that she would, that the same person would sleep with bisexual Destiny to get attention and money, would also go with Tate. And those are two different types of men, like polar opposite. So the fact that she's trying to sleep her way up the ladder really shows that she's not an empowered boss babe even then. So she failed to be a trad wife, failed to be a conservative Christian, and then she couldn't even be a scandalous Devil's Wears Prada harlot even. She couldn't be a heels up Harris even, effectively. So I feel bad for her son, who's gonna, like, she's got a boy, and then to know that your mom claims she was strangled and R-worded, or others claim that she just was getting cheeks clapped. That's pretty embarrassing. That your mom was once claiming to be a conservative Christian and then sleeps with a pornographer, claims to hate Muslims, then sleeps with one. I'm not sure if Tate was a Muslim at that time, but it's really bizarre either way. And I really hope that more Muslim brothers can just think about how, Tate has gotten himself into trouble, and that we shouldn't think that all the problems that he has are just because he converted to Islam or said free Palestine. No, a lot of them, the problems he has are self-inflicted and justified in some regards. But I hope that more women can use their mind and intelligence to get ahead rather than trying to sleep their way to the top as she did. And if you see how important it is to stay sober and stay away from men, you'll avoid a lot of dangerous situations. So Islam clearly has the better path, and Lauren Southern hates Islam, yet if she would have obeyed the rules of Islam, she would not have been a drug addict, skank, bedhopper, right? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our daughters from becoming that way, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide women to behaving better. Let me know what you think, and if you've also read about this, I would be curious to see What you say? Take care. Please like, comment, subscribe, join the blog. Alhamdulillah.